sat in the control room and stared at his screens. The night shift at the Australian listening post was always quiet, but tonight something felt different. The radio waves coming from deep space had changed their pattern. He drank his coffee and watched the numbers scroll across his monitor. For 3 years had worked at this facility. His job was simple: listen to the stars and record anything unusual. Most nights brought nothing but cosmic noise, but tonight the signals were dancing in ways he had never seen before. Across the world in Seoul was also awake. She worked at the National Observatory and had noticed the same strange patterns. Her telescope had picked up objects entering Earth's atmosphere, but they were not meteors. They moved with purpose, slowing down before landing in specific locations. She counted 12 of them so far, scattered across different continents. Picked up her phone and called her colleague. "Are you seeing this?" she asked. "Yes," came the reply. "They are landing in major cities: New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, and others." The objects were not hiding. In fact, world governments were celebrating their arrival. The news channels were already broadcasting the story. Alien visitors had come to Earth, and they brought gifts. The objects were described as integration nodes, advanced technology that would help humanity join the galactic community. Was sailing his cargo ship across the Pacific Ocean when he saw the light in the sky. Something massive was descending through the clouds, heading toward the coast of California. His crew gathered on deck to watch. The object was beautiful, glowing with soft blue light, and it moved silently through the air. "Captain, what is that?" asked one of his crew members. "I think that is one of those alien gifts," replied. "The ones they are talking about on the news." Within days, the integration nodes were installed in every major nation. World leaders stood beside them during press conferences, smiling and shaking hands with the alien ambassadors. The ambassadors were tall, elegant beings who spoke perfect English and every other human language. They promised partnership, technology, and a place for Earth in the Galactic Council. "We have watched your species for many years," one ambassador said during a United Nations address. "You have reached the point where you are ready to join the greater community. These nodes will connect you to the galactic network. You will have access to unlimited knowledge, advanced medicine, and clean energy. All we ask is your cooperation." The world celebrated. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but was not celebrating. He was looking at his data and something was wrong. The integration nodes were transmitting signals, but they were not sending information to Earth. They were sending information away from Earth. The signals were going somewhere beyond the solar system, creating a network that human technology could not access. Every node was connected to the others, forming a perfect grid that covered the entire planet. Downloaded the data and sent it to several scientists he trusted. One of them was, when she opened his files, she felt a cold sensation in her stomach. She had been studying the arrival trajectories of the nodes, and now she understood why their placement seemed so precise. The nodes were not arranged randomly. They formed a geometric pattern, each one positioned at a specific distance from the others. The pattern was not designed to share technology with humans. It was designed to cover every inch of the planet with overlapping signal coverage. Nothing on Earth would be outside the network's reach. "Called immediately. We need to meet," she said. "This is not what they are telling us." They met in a small coffee shop in Seoul 3 days later. Brought printed copies of his data because he no longer trusted digital communication. Brought her own research. They spread the papers across the table and compared notes. "Look at this," said, pointing to a diagram. "The nodes are not broadcasting to help us. They are building something, a communication line that goes around our entire planet and connects to something out there." She pointed up at the ceiling, meaning space. "What kind of communication line?" asked. "I think it is a control line," said quietly. "I think they are preparing to take control of everything on Earth at the same time." Felt his hands go cold. How long do we have? Pulled out another paper. It showed a timeline based on the signal patterns. The network is still building itself. It needs all the nodes to be fully synchronized. Based on the rate of synchronization, I estimate 90 days, maybe less. 90 days until what? Until the line is complete, until they can activate whatever they have planned. Received a message from an old friend that same week. The message was encrypted and told him to attend a private meeting in. When he arrived, he found and waiting for him, along with several other people he did not know. Explained everything. The integration nodes were not gifts, they were weapons. The Galactic Council was not offering partnership, they were preparing for conquest, and they had convinced every government on Earth to help them do it. Why us? Asked. Why would they choose Earth? Resources, said. Location. We are in a strategic position in this part of the galaxy, and we have a large population that they can use. Use for what? Labor, soldiers, whatever they need. The room fell silent, finally spoke again. What can we do? We are just ordinary people. The governments will not listen to us. They have already made their deal with the council. Looked at each person in the room. Then we do not go through the governments, she said. We find another way. The small group looked at each other. They were engineers, scientists, and sailors. They were not soldiers or politicians, but they were the only ones who knew the truth, and time was running out. Spent 3 weeks working on the signal encryption. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and determination. The integration nodes transmitted data in a language that no human computer could easily read, but she was finding patterns. Every code could be broken if you looked at it long enough. On the 22nd day, she cracked it. The data flowing through the nodes was not random. It was a countdown. Each node was reporting its status to a central control point, and that control point was somewhere beyond Earth. The countdown showed 71 days remaining. She called an emergency meeting. The group had grown since their first gathering in. Now there were 15 people, each bringing different skills. Among the new members was a cybersecurity specialist who had worked for major corporations before he discovered they were all cooperating with the council. There was also a colonel in the South Korean military who had started asking dangerous questions about the new alliance. I know what the line does, announced as everyone gathered in the basement of an abandoned factory. It is a kill switch. When the countdown reaches 0, every node will activate simultaneously. They will send out a pulse that will shut down our power grids, our computers, our communications, and our weapons. Everything electronic will stop working. Leaned forward. For how long? Permanently, unless they choose to turn things back on. The pulse will fry the circuits. We will be thrown back to the Stone Age in 1 second. Shook her head. That makes no sense. Why would they destroy our infrastructure if they want to use our planet? They are not destroying it, explained. They have their own systems. Their technology will not be affected by the pulse. Only ours will. After the pulse, we will be completely helpless. They will have total control. And our governments know this, someone asked. Some of them do, said. I have been reviewing classified communications. The Council has made promises to certain world leaders. They will be given positions of power in the new order. They think they are making a smart deal. Stood up and walked to a whiteboard. He drew a simple diagram showing Earth surrounded by dots representing the integration nodes. The nodes create a network. Each one connects to all the others. The system is designed to be perfect, with no weak points. But there must be a weak point, said. Everything has a weakness. There is one, said. The nodes on Earth are just receivers. They take orders from somewhere else. There is a relay station that coordinates everything. Where? Asked. The moon. We detected a signal coming from the dark side. That is where the main relay is located. The room went silent. The moon was not an easy target. Humanity had barely begun to establish a permanent presence there, and the Council's relay station would be heavily protected. A new voice spoke up. It belonged to Minyu, an engineer who worked at a private aerospace company. My company has been developing experimental propulsion systems. We have a prototype that could reach the moon much faster than conventional rockets. How fast? Asked. 3 days instead of 3 weeks, but it has never been tested with a human crew. Looked at the group. Even if we could get to the moon, what would we do when we got there? We do not have weapons that could destroy an alien relay station. Pulled out his laptop. We do not need to destroy it. We just need to disrupt it. If the relay station loses connection with the nodes on Earth for even a few minutes, the synchronization will fail. The countdown will reset, and we will have more time. More time to do what? Someone asked. To wake people up, said. To tell the world the truth. Right now, nobody believes us because the governments and media all support the Council. But if we can prove the network is a weapon, people will start asking questions. Over the next week, the group worked in secret. Minyu brought blueprints of his experimental ship, began mapping the node network to find vulnerabilities they could exploit during the disruption, continued analyzing the relay signals to determine the exact specifications they would need for a disruption device. Then they gained two unexpected allies. Was a pilot who had trained for years to become an astronaut, but she had been rejected from the official space program. When she heard about the mission to the moon, she volunteered immediately. I can fly anything, she said, and I am not afraid. Was a quantum physicist working at a university. He had been studying the integration nodes from a distance, measuring their energy signatures. When contacted him, he understood immediately what needed to be done. I can build a quantum disruptor, he said. It will create interference in the relay signal, but the device will need to be activated very close to the relay station, within a few hundred meters. How big will this disruptor be? Asked. The size of a refrigerator, and it will need 12 minutes to charge before it can fire. 12 minutes sounded like a long time when you would be sitting on the moon with alien defenses all around you. Began working on the second part of the plan. While the moon team disrupted the relay, there needed to be simultaneous attacks on Earth against the integration nodes. We cannot destroy them all, she said, but we can create chaos. If the Council sees resistance on Earth at the same time their relay is under attack, they will divide their forces. Volunteered to handle communications. When we make our move, I will broadcast the truth from my listening post. I will send the data to every news organization, every government, every person with an internet connection. They cannot silence all of us. The plan was insane. They were 15 ordinary people trying to stop an advanced alien civilization from enslaving the entire planet. They had one experimental ship, one untested quantum device, and 70 days before the countdown reached 0. But they had something the Galactic Council did not expect. They had nothing to lose and everything to fight for. Looked around at the faces in the room. We are going to do this, aren't we? Nodded, we have to, nobody else will. The group spent the remaining time gathering resources, building their device, and preparing for the mission. They knew that most of them would probably not survive. The Council had technology centuries beyond human capability, but they also knew that doing nothing meant certain slavery. As the countdown continued, reaching 60 days, then 50, the world remained unaware. People celebrated the new partnership with the Galactic Council. They marveled at the promises of utopia and advancement. But in basements and warehouses and small rooms across the world, a few humans prepared for war. The warehouse inn became their headquarters. Minyu brought the experimental ship piece by piece, disguised as ordinary shipping containers. The vessel was small, designed for a crew of only 4 people. It looked nothing like the sleek spacecraft shown in movies. It was a collection of metal panels, experimental engines, and systems that Minyu himself admitted might fail at any moment. This was supposed to be tested unmanned first, Minyu explained as he connected fuel lines. The company wanted 5 more years of development, but we do not have 5 years. Walked around the ship, examining every detail. She ran her hands along the hull, checking the seals and joints. Will it hold pressure? She asked. It should, Minyu said. I have triple-checked everything. Should is not the same as will. I know, but should is all we have. While they worked on the ship, was building the quantum disruptor in another part of the warehouse. The device was complicated, filled with components that had to be precisely calibrated. He worked with a medical officer who had joined their group after seeing classified reports about the Council's real intentions. Why did you join us? Asked as they soldered circuits together. You could have stayed safe. Did not look up from her work. I read their medical protocols. After the takeover, they plan to use humans for biological experiments. They want to study our resistance to diseases, our adaptability. They see us as laboratory animals. She paused. I became a doctor to save lives, not to watch my entire species become test subjects. The quantum disruptor slowly took shape. It was larger than had originally planned, but he insisted every component was necessary. The relay station will have shields, he explained. This device needs enough power to punch through those shields and disrupt the quantum entanglement that keeps all the nodes synchronized. 45 days remained on the countdown. Had been working on the cyber attack component of their plan. He had recruited hackers from around the world, though none of them knew the full scope of the operation. They thought they were planning to embarrass the Council, not save humanity. We will hit the nodes simultaneously, explained during a planning meeting. Each team will upload a virus that will cause the nodes to send garbage data back to the relay. It will not destroy them, but it will create confusion. How many teams do you have ready? Asked. 37 in 18 countries. They are good people, idealists who do not trust the Council. Had her own network forming. Military personnel from different nations who were uncomfortable with how quickly their governments had surrendered sovereignty. She could not tell them everything, but she had planted seeds of doubt. When the time came, she hoped some of them would refuse orders to defend the integration nodes. Had been modifying his cargo ship. It would serve as the cover story for their mission. He registered it as a private space tourism venture, one of many companies trying to capitalize on renewed interest in lunar travel. The paperwork was legitimate, filed through proper channels. The Council's agents reviewed it and found nothing suspicious. Why would they? Humans were not considered a threat. 30 days remained. The team ran simulations of the lunar approach, practiced flying the ship in a virtual environment that Minyu had created. The route was dangerous. They would need to approach the dark side of the moon at high speed, deploy the disruptor, and then hold position while it charged. What happens if Council ships intercept us? Asked during one simulation. Then we improvise, said. He would be piloting the ship alongside. Minyu's engine has one special feature. It can create gravitational distortions, small ones but enough to throw off targeting systems. For how long? Nobody knows. We have never tested it in combat. So more things that should work but might not. Exactly. Was still analyzing the relay signals, looking for any advantage they could use. She discovered that the relay station communicated with the nodes in pulses, not continuously. There was a brief window every 6 hours when the relay was receiving data instead of sending it. That would be their best chance to approach undetected. 20 days remained. Prepared his broadcast. He gathered every piece of evidence they had collected, signal analysis, decoded transmissions, internal documents that had obtained. He created a presentation that could be understood by anyone. The message was simple. The integration nodes were not gifts, they were chains. He recorded multiple copies and gave them to trusted people around the world. If something happened to him, the message would still get out. The group held a final meeting with 15 days left on the countdown. Everyone knew their roles. The lunar team would consist of Minyu, and they would launch under the guise of the tourism venture and make for the moon. Hacker teams would activate when the ship reached the halfway point, would broadcast the truth when the disruptor was deployed, would coordinate ground resistance, would stay behind to monitor the integration nodes and provide real-time data to all teams. "I wish I could go with you," she said to the lunar team. "We need you here," replied. "You are our eyes on Earth." The night before the launch, the team gathered one last time. They did not talk about the mission. Instead, they shared food and stories. They talked about their families, their dreams, the lives they had lived before the council arrived. They talked about the world they wanted to save. "Raised a glass. To the unlikely heroes," he said. "To cutting the line," added. They drank together, knowing that many of them would not see each other again. The next morning, the ship launched from a private facility in Kazakhstan. The cover story held. News organizations reported it as another billionaire's vanity project, a tourist flight to orbit the moon. The council paid no attention. As the ship accelerated away from Earth, Minyu monitored the experimental engines. They were performing better than expected, pushing the ship faster than any human vessel had traveled before. Sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on the controls. Through the window, Earth grew smaller behind them. Somewhere down there, billions of people went about their lives, unaware that their freedom hung in the balance. Check the quantum disruptor one more time. All systems showed green. The device was ready. Looked at the navigation display. 3 days to the moon, he said. Let's hope we make it. The ship plunged deeper into space, carrying humanity's desperate gamble toward the dark side of the moon. Behind them, the countdown continued. Ahead of them, an alien relay station waited, protected by technology beyond human understanding. But the crew was not thinking about the odds. They were thinking about what it said during their first meeting: "We find another way." They were ordinary people attempting an extraordinary thing, and sometimes that was enough. The ship crossed the distance between Earth and the moon faster than any human vessel before it. Minyu's experimental engines hummed with power, bending the laws of physics in ways that made nervous. "We are creating small tears in spacetime," said, watching his instruments. "This should not be possible with our level of technology." "Tell the engine that," Minyu replied. "It does not know it should be impossible." On the second day of their journey, they received an encrypted message from back on Earth. The Council had detected unusual activity on the planet. Several integration nodes had reported attempted cyber intrusions. Teams were starting their work early, probing for weaknesses. "They are going to know something is wrong," said. "Let them know," replied. "By the time they figure out what we are really doing, we will already be at the relay." But the council was faster than they expected. On the morning of the third day, as the ship approached the moon, alarms blared throughout the cabin. Looked at his sensors and felt his stomach drop. "We have company. 3 contacts, approaching fast from lunar orbit." Council interceptor ships. They were small but deadly, designed to eliminate threats quickly. The ships moved with impossible grace, their alien technology making human spacecraft look like children's toys. Pushed the ship into a dive, heading for the moon's surface. The interceptors followed, closing the distance rapidly. Energy weapons lit up the darkness of space, missing the human ship by meters. "Minyu, I need that gravitational distortion now," shouted. Minyu activated the experimental system. Space around the ship rippled. The interceptors' targeting systems went haywire, their weapons firing at spots where the ship had been moments before. But the effect was temporary. The council ships quickly adjusted their tactics. 2 minutes to the relay station," called out. "We need to land and deploy the disruptor." Another energy blast struck their ship, glancing off the hull. Alarms screamed. Hull breach in Section 3, Minu reported, sealing it off. Took manual control of the weapons system, such as it was. Their ship had never been designed for combat. They had mounted a few mining lasers as a desperate defense. He fired at the nearest interceptor, not expecting to hit it. But the laser caught the alien ship at an angle, scorching its hull. The interceptor fell back, surprised. Council forces were not used to prey that fought back. The lunar surface rushed up to meet them, brought the ship down hard, landing gear slamming into the gray dust. The relay station was visible now, a massive structure of alien design rising from the moon's surface like a dark tower. It pulsed with energy, coordinating the death of humanity's freedom. Deploying the disruptor, said. The cargo bay opened, and the refrigerator-sized device rolled out on mechanical treads. It positioned itself between the ship and the relay station, just 300 meters from the target. Charging sequence initiated, announced. 12 minutes until activation. 12 minutes. The interceptors regrouped, circling above the landing site. More ships were coming. The sensors showed at least 6 additional contacts approaching from the far side of the moon. Made a decision. Minu, stay with the disruptor, make sure it fires. I am taking the ship up. What? No, grabbed his arm. You cannot fight them alone. I am not going to fight them. I am going to annoy them. Pulled his arm free gently. If they are focused on me, they will not be shooting at the disruptor. 12 minutes. That is all you need. Before anyone could argue, sealed the cockpit and fired the engines. The ship lifted off, leaving the 3 others on the lunar surface beside the charging disruptor. Back on Earth, watched the countdown on his screen. The moon team was in position. It was time. He activated his broadcast, sending the signal to every communication network on the planet. His voice went out to billions of people simultaneously. My name is, I am a communications engineer. I have discovered something that your governments do not want you to know. The integration nodes are not gifts. They are weapons designed to enslave humanity. I have proof. He began transmitting the data, signals analysis, decoded messages, everything they had gathered. Within minutes, the information was spreading across the internet faster than it could be censored. Activated his network. 37 hacker teams in 18 countries simultaneously attacked their local integration nodes. The attacks were coordinated perfectly. The nodes began transmitting garbage data, creating confusion in the network. Made her calls. Military units around the world received orders from an unexpected source, a colonel who was asking them to defend their planet instead of defending the Council's infrastructure. Some refused, but some listened. Above the moon, danced his ship through a storm of energy weapons. The Council ships were faster and more powerful, but he knew something they did not. He knew how to be unpredictable. He flew patterns that made no tactical sense, spinning and diving in ways that violated every rule of space combat. The gravitational distortion activated again, throwing off their aim. A Council ship moved to intercept and fired his mining lasers at full power. The sustained beam cut across the interceptor's wing, sending it spiraling away. 8 minutes, his voice crackled over the radio. On the lunar surface, and Minu had set up defensive positions around the disruptor. They had mining charges and improvised weapons. When Council ground troops began landing nearby, they fought back with everything they had. Alien soldiers advanced in formation, their weapons precise and deadly. But they were not expecting resistance. The first wave fell back in confusion when mining charges exploded around them. 6 minutes, called out. He was watching the disruptor's charging sequence, praying nothing would interrupt it. In space, more Council ships arrived. His vessel was battered, systems failing. An energy blast tore through the engine section. The ship began losing altitude, falling toward the lunar surface. 4 minutes, said. Aimed his dying ship at the largest concentration of Council forces. For Earth, he whispered. The ship crashed into the lunar surface, exploding in a ball of fire that scattered alien troops and bought precious seconds. Saw the explosion and screamed. Minyu grabbed her shoulder. "Make it count," he said. "Make his sacrifice count." 2 minutes. The relay station seemed to sense the threat. Energy began building around it, preparing some kind of defensive countermeasure. Instruments went wild. It is trying to overload the disruptor before it can fire. Minyu ran to the device, manually overriding safeties. "Can we fire early?" "It will be at 80% power. It might not be enough." "It has to be enough." Hit the activation sequence. The quantum disruptor hummed, building energy faster than it was designed to. Sparks flew from its casing. The device was tearing itself apart, but it was doing its job. A beam of pure quantum disruption shot from the device toward the relay station. The beam hit the alien structure's shields and pushed through them. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the relay station began to scream. Not a sound. They were on the moon, there was no sound. But every instrument, every sensor picked up the electromagnetic shriek as the quantum entanglement holding the entire network together shattered. The destruction cascaded. The relay station exploded in slow motion, pieces of alien technology floating up into the lunar sky. But the real damage was invisible. The quantum backlash raced through the network at faster than light speed, reaching every integration node on Earth simultaneously. On Earth, the nodes exploded, all of them at the same instant. The carefully constructed network that was meant to enslave humanity destroyed itself in a chain reaction that the Council had never imagined possible. In orbit above Earth, Council command ships went dark. Their systems, connected to the same network, suffered the feedback pulse. Dead ships drifted in the darkness. Watched his instruments as the integration node nearest his listening post tore itself apart. "It worked," he whispered. "They actually did it." Was crying and laughing at the same time as she watched the data. The line was cut. The countdown had stopped at 0 not because the Council had won, but because the system no longer existed. On the moon, and Minyu stood beside the smoking remains of the quantum disruptor, was checking his sensors, hardly believing the readings. The backlash traveled through their entire network. "We did not just cut Earth's line. We cut the Council's communication across 12 sectors of space." Looked at the wreckage of ship in the distance. "We won," she said quietly, "but the cost." "The cost was everything," Minyu replied, "and it was worth it." The first week after the line was cut brought chaos to Earth. The Council's forces were stranded. Their command ships floated dead in orbit, unable to communicate with their home worlds. Their ground troops found themselves isolated on a hostile planet where the population had just learned the truth about the planned invasion. Governments that had cooperated with the Council scrambled to save themselves. Some leaders resigned. Others were arrested by their own militaries. The people demanded answers, and broadcast had given them all the evidence they needed. Found herself coordinating a global resistance movement that had appeared almost overnight. Military units from dozens of nations put aside their differences and focused on securing Council installations. The alien forces, without central command, surrendered in most locations. Some fought, but they were outnumbered and cut off from reinforcements. "It is strange," said during a secure communication with, "we spent so long preparing to fight them and now they are just giving up." "They were never prepared for real resistance," replied. "The Council has been conquering planets for thousands of years, but they always did it the same way. Cut communications, disable defenses, take control before anyone could react. We broke their pattern." On the moon, a rescue mission had been launched immediately after the disruptor fired. Minyu, and were brought back to Earth as heroes. They did not feel like heroes, had not survived, and dozens of others from their resistance network had been killed in the attacks on integration nodes around the world. but their sacrifice had freed humanity. The Council's network remained shattered. Ships from their home territory could not communicate with their colonial sectors. Trade routes broke down. Subject species across the galaxy heard about what happened on Earth, and they began asking questions their overlords could not answer. 3 months after the line was cut, the first rebellion started on a world called. The inhabitants, who had been enslaved for generations, rose up against their council masters. Without the network to coordinate a response, the council could not crush the rebellion quickly. 6 months later, there were 17 rebellions across the galaxy. Spent the months after the crisis studying captured council technology. She led a team of scientists who were reverse engineering everything they could salvage. The alien technology was advanced, but it was not incomprehensible. Humans learned quickly. "We are 50 years behind them in some areas," explained during a presentation to the newly formed United Earth Space Command. "But we are ahead in others. They never had to innovate. They never had to improvise. Everything in their technology is standardized, predictable. That is a weakness." Was building Earth's new communication network. He designed it with one principle in mind: decentralization. "The Council's mistake was putting all their control in one place," he said. "Our network will have no central point. You cannot cut it because there is nothing to cut." Was working with other scientists to develop medical treatments based on Council technology. But she was careful, always remembering the experiments they had planned to perform on humans. "We will never use this technology to hurt people," she insisted, "only to heal them." 1 year after cutting the line, Earth launched its first truly faster-than-light ship. Minyu had designed it using principles learned from both the experimental engine and captured council vessels. Was chosen to command it. "Where will you go?" asked her the day before the launch. "To meet our new friends," replied. "The species who rebelled after seeing what we did. They need to know they are not alone." The ship was named in honor of the captain who had sacrificed himself to save humanity. It launched from Earth carrying a message of freedom and hope to the galaxy. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, was collapsing. Without their communication network, they could not maintain control over their vast territory. The empire that had ruled was fracturing into dozens of independent sectors. Some tried to rebuild the Council's power structure. Others embraced the chaos and formed their own governments. A delegation from the Council finally reached Earth 18 months after the line was cut. They arrived in damaged ships, their uniforms worn, their pride shattered. They requested permission to land and negotiate. Now serving as Secretary General of United Earth, met them in Geneva. The room was filled with cameras. The world watched as the Council's ambassadors stood before humanity. "We wish to discuss terms," the lead ambassador said. He was the same one who had spoken to the United Nations during the original integration announcement. But now he looked tired and defeated. "Terms of what?" asked. "Of Earth's integration into the new Galactic Council. With the old structure gone, we are forming a new government, one that respects the sovereignty of member species. We would like Earth to join." Looked at the ambassador for a long moment. Around the room, representatives from every nation on Earth waited for her response. Was there, along with Minyu, and who had returned from her first diplomatic mission. They were all present for this moment. "No," said simply. The ambassador blinked. "I do not understand. You would refuse membership in the galactic community." "We do not refuse membership. We refuse your version of it. You came to Earth planning to enslave us. You destroyed trust. Now you want us to join your new government because your old one failed. Why would we trust you?" "Because you need allies. You are one planet. The galaxy is vast and dangerous." "You are right," agreed. "We do need allies, but we are already finding them. The species who rebelled after we cut your line, they are our allies. We are building something new together, a real alliance. Not a hierarchy where some species rule and others serve. An actual partnership. The ambassador looked uncomfortable. What you are describing has never worked. The galaxy needs order. The galaxy needs freedom, said. You spent building an empire based on control. You are so used to being in charge that you cannot imagine another way. But we can. We showed you on the moon. When you tried to cut our line, we cut yours instead. She stood up, signaling the meeting was over. You are welcome to stay in this solar system if you wish. Your stranded ships can dock at our stations. Your soldiers can request asylum. But your government has no authority here. Earth is not accepting your calls. The ambassadors left in silence. The message would spread across the galaxy. Humanity had not just rejected the Galactic Council. Humanity had humiliated them. 5 years after cutting the line, stood in the United Earth Space Command Center. The room was filled with holographic displays showing the state of the galaxy. Former Council territories were now independent. The Free Species Alliance, founded by Earth and its new partners, included 43 different worlds. Subservatory tracked not threats but opportunities for cooperation. Humanity had shared its knowledge freely with allied species, and they had shared in return. Earth's technology advanced faster in 5 years than it had in the previous 50. Commanded the flagship of Earth's defense fleet, a fleet that existed not to conquer but to protect. She had visited 30 different worlds, carrying the message that freedom was possible. Its communication network connected Earth with its allies. Information flowed freely, impossible for any single government to control or cut off. Ran the Free Species Medical Initiative, using technology from a dozen different worlds to cure diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. Minu continued designing ships, each one faster and more efficient than the last. Human vessels could now cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months. Was teaching quantum physics at the new Galactic University on Earth, where students from 43 species learned together. Finished her speech to the Alliance Council and looked out at the assembled representatives. Humans sat beside aliens who looked nothing like them, but they were equals, partners in building something better than what the Galactic Council had offered. 5 years ago, said, we were alone, we were facing slavery and we did not even know it. Our governments had sold us out. Our planet was days away from losing everything. But a few ordinary people refused to accept that fate. They cut the line. She paused, letting the words sink in. The Galactic Council thought they had everything planned. They had their schedules, their technology, their perfect network. They had conquered 1,000 worlds the same way, but they made one mistake. They thought humans would follow their plan. We did not follow their plan. We made our own, and when they tried to finish us, we finished them instead. The assembly applauded. Representatives from species that had been enslaved for generations stood and cheered. They understood what Earth had done. By cutting the line, humanity had not just saved itself. It had broken the chains that bound half the galaxy. Watched from the back of the room and thought about that first night in the Australian listening post when he had noticed the signals were wrong. He thought about the coffee shop in Seoul where he had first realized the truth. He thought about the warehouse in where 15 ordinary people had decided to save the world. Most of all, he thought about who had flown his ship into hell so that others could live. The galaxy would never know his name, but Earth would never forget it. The Galactic Council had planned for Earth to finish. They had their schedules, their invasion, their perfect conquest. But humans had cut off the line, and in doing so, they had taught the galaxy a lesson that would echo for generations. Never underestimate a species that refuses to give up. The meeting ended. Representatives mingled, discussing trade, culture, and cooperation. The future was uncertain, but it was free, and that was enough.